What is shakin', Internet? This is Salts bringing you the champion review of the Atlas Reactor February Alpha Week. Basically, the sneak peek Alpha Week for Atlas Reactor. This week I have played around 100 games on a whole bunch of different champions, and I'm going to go ahead and just review all the champions, show all of their moves, the different modules, what I would personally select, and a little bit about each champion, just really briefly and really quickly. Let's go ahead and just go top to bottom. So first champion is Asana. Asana is this sword user. She's she's melee champion basically. She has a couple really good moves, a couple good dashes, and all of that good stuff. Her abilities are as follows. The first one is basically a giant strike that does mostly a 360-degree cone with a very small degree that you can't actually hit somebody with. It's very easy to hit pretty much anybody with this. It's got short range, but it actually does pretty decent damage and gives you lots of energy. For this, the different mods are gain 2 additional energy per enemy hit for 1, increases damage by 3 for 2, and each enemy hit restores 5 health by 3. Personally, I'm a big fan of the restoring health, but really all 3 of these are pretty good. Each one kind of goes up in costs, but actually it's pretty good. I go either Swordmaster or Leechblade. I'd like to say Leechblade's probably a little bit better overall, but that's just me. I like Lifesteal. Her second ability is her dash. Basically, she can dash to somebody. If she hits somebody, she will do some damage. Cool thing is about this, she can actually bounce off of walls, making her a very mobile champion versus some other ones. The modules here are Charge Capacitor. Gain 5 extra energy if you hit an enemy, bounces off the first target hit. Dashing over allies grants them 15 shield and increases the range of each bounce by 1. They're kind of, all these are situational. I really like the bounces off the first target hit because you can actually hit 2 targets that way, and you get a little bit more range. You can get really close to them, or you can decide to really get away from them. Pretty cool. Overall, I think Vault is probably the best, but it does cost 3, so it's not the best thing in the world. If you absolutely have to go with one of them, I would probably pick Charge Capacitor or Fleet-Footed because you get either bonus range or you get bonus energy. Energy is really good because Asana's ult is actually pretty good. Her third move is Stand and Fight, which basically is a root in place. You shoot your little wave out, and you hit somebody, and you root them in place. Then you cannot do anything. The basic is Atomic Edge, increasing the damage. You can also increase energy gain or pierce through the first enemy. Honestly, her 3 is really good, piercing through the first enemy, but it's very rare that you'll actually be able to get 2 roots off. People will, just not be lined up in the correct spot. Most of the time, I would either go with increased damage or increased energy gain if needed to drop it down. So I would only go to energy gain on this one if you need something to be 1 instead of 2. Her fourth move is, what is it called? Retribution. It's basically her shield. She puts a shield on herself that's pretty decent, and if anybody touches you or hits you, they will take 10 damage back. So they basically take damage back. Really good move. This is kind of what makes a good Asana player really good. The modules here are increasing shield strength, increases the retribution damage. When activated, all nearby allies gain 10 shields, and enemies damaged by retribution are revealed for the turn. Watchful defense is pretty terrible. Safeguard is okay, but generally not the best. I would go with Iron Will here, or Immolation. But Immolation for 3, it's really good, but it depends on how often you can actually use this on time. I would say it's a little bit cooler to have the Iron Will instead of the Immolation, but maybe that's just me. Alright, her ult is Guardian Angel. Basically, she throws her blade out, she gives everybody a shield, and then she jumps to that place and hurts everybody in a big area. Really cool is her basic module is Savior. Basically, you can leap to an ally anywhere on the map. No matter how far away they are, you can always leap to them. You can increase shield strength by 10, or you can increase the duration of the shields by 1 turn. Actually, the increased duration of shields by 1 turn is pretty good because normally, somebody's not going to take damage even if you jump over there. Only one person kind of generally takes damage all the time. But it's not great. But the nice thing is it only costs 1. So if you really are looking for a 1 cost so you can get a 3 on something else, lasting protection is pretty decent. Archangel is actually, I don't like this very much. The bonus 10 shield is just not worth it. It's 10 shield for you and 10 shield for your ally, or allies if you're close to them, but I would generally say that's probably one of the weakest 3s that she has. So this is basically Asana. I'm just realizing now that I talked for 5 minutes about one champion, so this might be a little bit of a longer video. Either way, Asana is actually a very good. She's probably one of the best frontliners. I would say Rask is probably the only frontliner that I find better than her. Her mobility is really good, and her ult is also really exceptional. Let's see, drawbacks to Asana. Drawbacks to Asana is that if she doesn't have her dash, she is kind of limited on what she can do. She doesn't always have the ability to hit people. The root is a relatively long cooldown. What is the root? Root's a 4 cooldown, which is just a little bit longer than I think it would be to be really effective. And so is the dash. So a lot of the times you're going to be sitting there just using your basic attack, Rolling Blade, and it's kind of disappointing. Next champion we're going to talk about is Zuki. Let's try and speed this up a bit. Zuki, she has 5 different moves like everybody. Bombard is basically a shot that does a little bit of AoE at the end. The mods are gain an additional 3 energy per hit, increase damage to initial target by 4, and increase damage to nearby enemies by 10. Honestly, any of these are pretty good. I like extra shrapnel if I can. I like to get put a little bit more of mods on the basic attack because you'll be using that more often than all of your other moves. So extra shrapnel is really good on this one. Sticky Bomb. Sticky Bomb basically is a big cone attack that does a sticky bomb on everybody. It puts these little flares on each champion, and then on the next turn, they will blow up and do a whole bunch of damage. I would highly suggest that this is the move that like is really good for Zuki. If you can hit multiple people with this, you will do lots of damage. Targets are revealed until the end of turn. When a sticky bomb explodes, the target is slowed. The cooldown of sticky bombs is reduced by 1 for each enemy affected by sticky bombs, and when a sticky bomb is applied, the target is weakened. Pyrotechnic is easily the best thing here. Reducing the cooldown if you hit people is just fantastic. Just more cooldowns and more sticky bombs, and that's really, really good. Pyrotechnic is my favorite by far. And it really kind of tricks people up because they don't realize that you're going to be sticky bombing once and then sticky bombing the next turn if you hit 2 or 3 people. The big one is basically her ult. That's not her ult, but it's just a giant nuke. She puts a nuke down, and then the next turn it comes crashing down and destroys people. This is a really good move. You've seen it if you've ever seen a Zuki in there. Reduces the cooldown by 1, if just the basic one here. The targets in the middle of the 3x3 take an additional 10 damage. That's pretty cool. Gain an additional 6 range. Enemies in the targeting area are slowed, and now a free action. I like Peekaboo here because it becomes a free action, because then you can drop the nuke down and then you can use your sticky bomb or your basic attack, and it's really good to actually get that. It does cost 3, but I really think that that's probably the best one here. Booster Jet. Okay, so rocket jump. Basically, you jump to a nearby place. So this is her dash. She does damage to everybody nearby when she starts the dash, and then she dashes to a nearby place. Let's see. Modules are increased damage by 5, gain 10 extra energy on ability use, gain might until end of next turn, and enemies at your liftoff location are slowed, gain a shield for 20 by the end of next turn. Blast shield is actually not very good. Eat My Dust is not bad, but it's not great because you can still be chased down by anybody that's not right next to you. The might until next turn is okay, but I'm not a huge fan of that. I would say overall, probably the extra big boom is probably just the best bet here. Booster Jet's not bad, but I like to go the 1 here because then you can use then you can go up to 3 on like the big one or the Bombard. Let's see, Missile Storm. Okay, Missile Storm is basically her ultimate, where she will do a huge area and target everybody in there, and then do some AoE damage on each one of those things. A lot of AoE damage. This is actually kind of Zuki's bread and butter. If you're really good at aiming this ult or hitting people with this ult, you will do tons of damage as Zuki. Zuki is very ult dependent, honestly, in the games that I've seen her. If you can hit the ult, you're great. If you can't, you're just not going to be doing nearly as much damage as everybody else. Replicating rockets. Each target gives 5 energy. Targets enemies through walls, or increased damage by 9. Damage is reduced by 3 for each target beyond the first. Concentrated fire is not that great in my opinion. Enhanced targeting is really fantastic, but it does cost 3, so it's kind of meh. And then replicating rockets is probably one of the better ones. Each target hits gives 5 energy. Again, I go with that one just so that I can give a 3 on something else. But I would say either the 1 or 3 is good. The concentrated fire is kind of meh. Okay, next we have Aurora. Perfect. Aurora's abilities, basically she's a support. So like I said, on Zuki's a little bit ult dependent. I feel like if you can't hit her, she doesn't have enough damage on everything else besides her ult. Okay, so Aurora. Aurora is probably one of the best supports in the game, in my opinion. Her basic attack is Shock Therapy, which is just a line shot that both heals and hurts any enemies in the line. The modules are increase ally healing by 4, heal yourself for 5 as well, and allies now gain 2 energy when hit. I kind of like either the group therapy or Vayne just for bonus healing. The 2 energy is not bad. If you want to do that, then you can actually spam that and in turn 1 and stuff like that. Next one is Ion Cloud. Basically, she puts down a little Ion Cloud that there's a 3x3 damage that sticks around for an extra turn. Increases duration by 1 turn. I actually really like this module. Okay, let's talk about all of them first. Reveals enemies for 2 turns, reduce the cooldown by 1 turn, and restores 8 health to allies in the cloud. I really like the increased duration by 1 because people don't expect it, and it's just such a great zoning tool because people do not want to go into that giant electrified zone. Stable Ions is where it's at. Next one is Healing Flare, which basically is just a big bonus heal to something. Let's see. It's a single target heal on either yourself or allies. Let's see. Polarity knockback range increased to 3. Oh. Enemies next to the target are knocked back during the blast phase. Sorry, I forgot about that part. So basically, it's a knockback if you're next to somebody. Knockback range is increased to 3. Pretty good. Can be targeted through walls. Pretty good. Enemies hit by the flare take 15 damage. And restores an additional 10 health if the target is under 50% health. Honestly, any of these are good. The bonus knockback is good. The through walls is great. Bonus damage on the flare, and then restores an additional health. Like, any of these are good. All of them are situational, but any of these are good. Which is why Aurora is probably the best support. Her 4th move is Paralyzer, which basically is a giant field of weakening. Basically, you weaken the enemies, and you can shoot this through walls. Her modules are enemies hit are also slowed, additionally buffs allies with might, enemies hit are also revealed, the ability's cooldown is reduced by 1 for each target hit, and now a free action. The big one here would be either Rapid Paralysis or Pulse Beam. I am a big fan of Rapid Paralysis because it reduces the cooldown. I just like being able to use it more often, but Pulse Beam turning it into a free action is actually pretty good. I also have seen quite a bit of people use Surge of Might to give the might. It depends on if you can hit this. If you can actually use it to give your allies might, it's a great move. Otherwise, it's Kanme. Okay, her ult is Heart of the Storm, which is basically a giant cross that heals everybody and hurts everybody on the enemy team in that cross. The modules are slows enemy for the turn and hastes allies, increases the number of beams to 8, and each beam that only hits 1 target, friendly or enemy, increases its potency by 6. This is kind of stupid. I do not like Focused Radiance. Temporal Shift isn't bad. It's not bad if you're looking for a 1, but Supernova is just so good. You really, really want Supernova on this. It's totally worth it. Totally worth the 3. So yeah, Aurora is probably one of the best supports. The only thing is, if she gets focused, and she does not have her ult, she's going to be in trouble. But I've seen people focus Aurora and think that they've got the game in the bag, and then she ults and just wrecks everybody. It's hilarious how good Aurora could be. And Aurora is really probably one of the basic champions. I would suggest starting with Aurora if you're playing, if you want to play any kind of healing. Grimolitions. So Grimolitions has 5 different abilities. First one is Boom Boom, where basically he puts down 2 mines. I guess there's no video for this. Interesting. So he puts down 2 mines anywhere on the map, or at least very close to him in this giant arc. The first module's first enemy hit takes an additional 5 damage, increases the arc width for the second bomb, no longer has a minimum range, and increases damage of mines by 4. No downsides is actually one of the best here because no minimum range. You can put something right next to you, and there's always somebody really close to you. Increasing the damage of the mines by 4 isn't bad, but it does cost 3, and it's only by 4. I'm not a huge fan of that one. Next one is Splort. Basically, he puts mines all around him in a octagonal shape. Let's see. The mods here are mine damage is increased by 2, and mines give 2 more energy. Mines persist for 1 additional turn. Gain haste until end of next turn, and enemies hit by mines are weakened until the end of next turn. Shock mines is actually probably one of my more favorite ones here, but any of these are kind of okay. Nothing's really fantastic here. Haste might be the best one because you can bomb it and then you can run, and it only costs 1. It's a great little use of 1 module. The next move is Big Bang. Basically, he throws out a move here that does a big explosion, or a little explosion rather, and it hurts everybody nearby and knocks them out. It actually knocks them back and roots them away from that point. So that's actually pretty cool. Bigger Bang increases the size of the explosion. Party Crasher deals 5 more damage for each hit. Each person hit got your name on it. If only one target is hit, they take 10 additional damage and are knocked back 1 additional space. Blast Force, knockback distance is increased by 2. Any of these are kind of cool. I would go with either Party Crasher just to deal more damage with it, or maybe get your name on it, depending on if you can hit with 1 target. I like to try and hit more than 1 person, so I wouldn't go too crazy with that. Bigger Bang's not terrible either. It does increase the size, and minimum range is increased. But whatever, I think it's pretty good. Bombing Run. Okay, Bombing Run is his dash, and it's probably, I think it's the longest dash in the game with 7 cooldown. It might be the same as Gray's. But either way, basically you dash to one place, and then you dash another place, and you do damage on each of those places that you hit. And you leave a mine at each location. Pretty cool. Oh wait, that's with the model I have on. When tanks fly, you gain an additional bounce, so you can actually bounce 2 times. Bounce once, bounce twice, and then you bounce to your final destination. Pretty cool, probably the best mod. Splort again. Reset the cooldown of Splort. Pretty cool when you do this because then you immediately put down some mines. Increase the maximum range of each jump by 1. Left your present, leave a mine at each location. Left your present is really stupid. I would either go with when tanks fly or extra fuel. Either get that additional bounce, which is really good, or increasing the maximum range. Basically, you just get away faster or get somewhere faster. His ultimate, Maniacal Mayhem, basically launches 4 bombs to target locations and deals a whole bunch of damage. You take 10 extra damage per hit if you can hit more than 1 bomb in a place. It's really pretty impressive if you can actually do damage to this. The Artillery Barrage module increases the range by 3 and widens the arc. Minefield leaves mines at bomb locations that don't hit enemies. And how many? 8? Launch 4 more bombs. Enemies hit by additional bombs only take 5 damage. So I would say how many 8 is pretty good, but I don't see a lot of people taking it because you can do more bombs, but you don't get bonus damage on them. So Artillery Barrage is pretty good, just as a base cost. Minefield is kind of meh. I would not go with Minefield. Overall, Grimolitions is actually very hard to use. He's probably very effective. I've seen him be very, very effective and have like certain great combos, but by himself, he's just a mediocre champion. I wouldn't say he's a great freelancer, but he's a very hard freelancer. He probably has a lot more potential to get. Next one's Helio. So Helio is a great support. His first ability is Echo Hammer. He basically hits a line shot, hits somebody, and then it bounces to 2 additional targets if they're nearby. Does a little bit less damage per that. Each chain deals an additional 2 damage and gains 2 additional energy. So if you can actually hit multiple people, this is a good module to have. Reverberation increases the distance between chains by 1 and increases total targets by 1. Reverberation's okay, but that's only if all 4 of them are together, so it's really not very useful. And Sledge increases the potency of all hits by 5 damage. Probably Sledge is your best bet here. It does a lot of damage and increases damage multiple times if you can hit multiple things every single time you use it. Shield. Blast Shield basically throws a shield on yourself or an ally. It's a 26 damage shield, so it's pretty potent. You can actually have multiple charges, so it's pretty good. Let's see. Omni Barrier no longer requires line of sight to the target. Next one is Shield. Targets gains in 10 energy. Shield for an additional 14, but becomes a full action instead of just a free action. Power Share. Shielded target gains Might for the turn. And shielded target gains haste next turn. Basically, you just choose what buff you want. Do you want bonus energy? Do you want bonus shield? Do you want bonus might? Do you want bonus haste? Or do you want to do the Omni Barrier? Omni Barrier generally is just the best here because then you can throw it through walls and you don't have to have line of sight on your allies. And you can really save people a whole bunch that way. Black Hole Generator is basically something you can throw on yourself or an ally, and the next turn after you use it, it pulls everybody in and roots them in place. Pretty cool. Does a lot of damage. This is actually a really good move to use with specific people like frontliners, like Rampart, like Rask, like Pup. Okay, so Supermassive. Supermassive target gains unstoppable till the end of next turn. Galvanic Core gained 5 energy on cast. Gravity Warp. Enemy hits are weakened. Enemies hit are weakened until the end of next turn. Event Horizon target is shielded for 10 until the end of next turn. Any of these are okay. I kind of just like the Supermassive Unstoppable. The other one I would go with is Galvanic Core if you need a 1 cost to offset something. Supermassive is pretty good because then they can go wherever they want and they cannot be rooted, they cannot be stopped, and they will go wherever they want for the next turn, so you can set up a good combo. Disruption Matrix is a big wall that, there's no video for this one, yeah. So there is a big wall that he can put down that scrambles anybody that walks through it. Scramble basically means that they can only do their basic attack. It also does damage as well. It can be really good in conjunction with the black hole generator. Basically, you put the black hole on somebody, next turn you put down the wall, and it pulls the enemies through the wall. Pretty good combo if you've never seen it. Modules here are increased range by 2, enemies passing through the wall are weakened, allies moving through the wall gain 12 shields, decrease cooldown by 1, gain an additional 2 energy per hit. Decrease cooldown is probably the best here because then you can just use it more often. Really, they're all kind of good. I like the barrier, I like the weekend, I like the additional energy, I like all of them. Even the increased range. Every single one of these is good. Ultimate is Battle Forged. Basically, you can put it on yourself or an ally, and you get a huge shield, and you do a whole bunch of damage to anybody nearby, and it lasts for the next 2 turns. The modules here are targeted ally gets 20 additional shields, target gains might, lasts for 3 turns instead of 2, grants 60 shield and unstoppable for the duration instead of 50 shield, and enemies hit by the vortex are weakened, and allies hit by the vortex are unstoppable. Unstoppable is really stupid. Weakened isn't bad. Might is okay. I really just can't get over how good Ironclad is, though. Giving it that extra turn and getting bonus shields and unstoppable, like, that's just bread and butter. Take that, Ironclad. So good. Okay, I would say Helios is probably one of the best champions in the game. As far as supports go, I like Aurora more, just because her shield, or her healing is better overall. Whereas Helio has to be reactive on his shield, like you have to put your shield on the right person. Whereas Aurora can do it afterwards, like after the damage has been done. As long as you haven't died, she can bring you back up, and that gets people to focus the wrong things, and it's really good stuff. Helio is probably the second best support, and probably one of the best characters in the game to combo with a lot of different champions. So Rask has 5 moves, great melee champion, probably the best frontliner in my opinion. So his first move is Maul, which is basically a big swipe that does a whole bunch of damage. Let's see, modules. Near enemies take additional 4 damage and further take bonus damage. Generate an additional 5 energy on near targets hit and 2 on far. Deals full damage through cover, and adjacent enemies are slowed for the turn. I really like Shredding Steel, deal full damage through cover because people are always taking cover. But any of these are really good. Primal Fury is not bad. Bestial's not bad. The only problem with Primal Fury is you have to really be good about using his ultimate. Okay, Upheaval. Knockback. Basically, Upheaval is you hit the enemy, you knock them back, and you root them in place. You can throw them against a wall. You can keep them in place if they're up against a wall already. It's really good stuff. Increases the range by 1 and the knockback range by 1. It affects all targeted enemies. Deals an additional 10 damage and gain 3 additional energy if you hit an enemy. I cannot say enough good things about Aftershock. Aftershock hitting all targeted enemies. I've seen multiple people like root everyone in an entire group and just be like, you're up all against the wall and you're rooted, and that leads to some fantastic combos. So I would highly recommend Aftershock for this. Pain Train. Pain Train is his dash. Basically, you dash forward, you do a whole bunch of damage to anybody, and you're good. Modules here are increased damage at the landing location by 3, increased range, and enemies hit are slowed for the turn. Honestly, the range is probably the best here. You want bonus range on that dash. Next one, Augmented Regeneration. Basically, you heal every turn, and you get bonus healing if you're at lower health. This is what makes Rask really unstoppable, in my opinion. It is an 8 cooldown, but we'll see about that. Quick Mend. Gain all healing over 1 turn, 20 health if above the threshold, or 40 health if below. Increase duration of the heal effect by 1 turn. Gain unstoppable for the turn. Increase the threshold to 75 health. Pain Tolerance isn't bad, but I like Quick Mend. I like getting all the healing at once because then it's really good, but, you know, that might not be the best thing in the world. You get bonus healing and you get it all in 1 turn. Pretty good. Pretty good. Let's see. Uncontrollable Fury is Rask's ult. Basically, when you get full energy, you will immediately discharge all these nastiness stuff all around you. You reset all of your cooldowns, and you create a zone of plasma. Basically, you want to, you really have to know what you're doing with Rask, but when you get full, you are automatically going to lose all of your cooldowns, so you always need to use your healing, use your dash, use everything before you get to the full energy. The modules here are increase energy gain from incoming damage by 50%, no longer triggers automatically, grants might for the next 2 turns, and grants unstoppable until the end of next turn. Driving Rage is really stupid in my opinion. Might for the next 2 turns isn't bad. Controlled Fury is actually really good because people do not expect it. People just don't look at Rask's energy bar very often. So no longer triggers automatic is pretty good. Also Blood Rage is pretty good because you can get your ult even more often. The ult is really what gives Rask his full potential here, because you just reset those cooldowns and you just keep healing, you just keep dashing, you cannot be killed. I've seen so many just amazing Rasks destroy people. I would say Rask is easily the best frontliner and one of the better champions in the entire game. Pup. So Pup has 5 moves. He's a great melee champion, but he's not really melee because he has a whole bunch of ranged moves, but his basic attack is melee at least. So let's see, Megabyte is his basic attack. He basically chomps a whole bunch of people right in front of him. It's not quite a cone, but either way. Let's see, his modules are increase health recovery by 2 enemy per hit. Basically, you heal every time you hit somebody too, so you can get bonus health that. Rabid increases damage of the Megabyte for the next turn after you using one by 6. This is only if you use Megabyte multiple turns in a row, which generally is just not something you do as Pup, so I'm not a huge fan of this. I think this module is kind of crap. Bite and Run reduces the cooldown on Prowl Protocol by 1 turn when Megabyte deals damage. I would say this one's okay. It depends on how often you want to do the Prowl Protocol, which we'll get to in a bit. Tasty Target, enemies hit are revealed until the end of next turn. It's not terrible. I would say Bloodhound here is just the go-to one. Get bonus health. Maybe Tasty Target if you're looking for to get a 3 on something else. Pounce is his next move, which is basically a dash to an enemy. And then after that turn, you will run after the enemy. Pretty cool. The mods here are increases the range by 3. If somebody dies when you pounce on them, you gain 30 health at the beginning of next turn. And then gain 10 health upon hitting an enemy. And the last one is can now target allies. I would say Rush of Blood here is easily the best one. Potentially Playtime if you're looking for a bigger one. But getting 10 health on hitting an enemy is pretty fantastic. The only problem with this move, I just have to point this out, is Pounce. If you do not hit an enemy, number 1, you will not get the healing at all. And number 2, you will not actually chase after them. So if you don't hit an enemy, you will not chase them down afterwards. Or if they become invisible or something like that, you don't chase them. And it's really, really annoying. Next move is Walkies. Basically, Pup shoots out this walkie thing, and then at the end of the turn, the enemy has to follow you. So basically, you make them follow you for the next move phase. Pretty good. Modules here are increase range, target is revealed, and target is slowed. Revealed is really stupid in my opinion because they're chasing you anyway. Like, they should be revealed. If they're not revealed, I don't know. Next one is Wear Out. Target is slowed until next turn. Last one is Retractable Leash. Increase that range. I would say just Retractable Leash is the best here. I'm not a huge fan of slowed, but it does kind of help because it's slowed on the next turn. I actually didn't read this right the first time. But you actually do the walkies, they run towards you, and then the next turn after they ran towards you, they are slowed. So that's pretty good. Prowl Protocol. Basically, this is where Pup goes invisible and gains might for 3 turns. This is how you can really sneak up on an enemy. The mods here are gain energized for 3 turns when you use it, gain 20 shields until the end of the next turn, go for the leg, your first attack out of stealth also slows the target, dash a short distance, then go invisible, gain unstoppable for the turn. Technically, Hunting Dog, you go invisible, then you dash, but whatever. I would say any of these are okay. None of them are fantastic. I like the Energize just so that you can get your ult that much faster, and it gives you more incentive to do it pretty early. I tried Hunting Dog, and you can dash a short distance, but it has limited uses, and you lose a little bit of mobility there because then you have to like dash, and you don't get to move. So you can't go invisible and then move. You have to dash, and then you don't get to move at all. So it kind of comes and goes. I like both Hunting Dog and Amped Up. Both of those are my go-to picks there. Depending on the situation. Subwoof. Subwoof is Pup's ult, and basically you deal a ton of damage to everybody nearby, and you scramble them until next turn, which basically scrambling means that you only can do your basic attack. You cannot do any other things except for your basic attack. The mods here are Supersonic, enemies are also revealed, 211, enemies take a 10 additional damage, and Acoustic Distraction, gain invisibility until the end of the next turn. I'm not a huge fan of any of these really, but 211 is probably the best, just so you can do additional damage to anybody nearby. Pup is actually a really good champion. I would say Pup overall is one of my favorite champions, but he's really not the best champion. I would say Rask is better than Pup in most scenarios. And Pup does a ton of damage, but only if you can group up. If you can get multiple people in your Megabyte, you're great. If you can't, you're not really going to be doing a ton of damage. You're just going to die really fast because Pup has less health than a lot of people. So overall, I don't know. Lockwood is the next champion, and this is a champion that pretty much everybody gets to play because you start off with Lockwood. Let's see. Your abilities are Trick Shot, which is basically a move that you can shoot off of walls and shoot around walls, really, using that way. Modules here are gain 2 additional damage per bounce. Backup plan cooldown reduced by 1 when Trick Shot hits a target. Backup plan is his dash, which we'll talk about in a bit. Impaling Shot pierces the first target hit and adds an additional bounce. Impaling Shot really is the best here because then you can shoot twice. You can shoot 2 enemies, and it actually happens pretty often because you can bounce it off the wall after you hit the first target and hit second. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility than some other moves. Light 'em Up is his next move. That is basically a cone attack which does a whole bunch of damage to everybody in the cone. The first module is increase the firing range to 90 degrees instead of 60 degrees, I believe is what it was. Quick Fingers gain 3 additional energy per enemy hit. Focus Fire deals 35 damage but reduces the width of the arc to 45 degrees. And Phosphorus Rounds reveals enemies hit for 2 turns. I really am a fan of a couple of these. I like Spray and Pray, but I also like Phosphorus Rounds and Focused Fire. It kind of just is up to you. If you're playing at the beginning, I would suggest Spray and Pray, but Focused Fire probably is a better bet if you can do it right. Trapwire is his third move, and basically he throws down a trapwire that somebody can then run over and do a whole bunch of damage. Let's see, I like Trap Wall. The first module is Trap Wall, increase the size of the trapwire, so instead of a 2x2 cross, it's a 4x4 cross. Pretty good. Throwing Arm can be thrown over walls. Consolation Prize, if nobody trips the trapwire, the cooldown is reset. Instant Trap, now a free action, reduces damage by 20. Instant Trap is actually pretty decent. Consolation Prize is also pretty decent, but I like Trap Wall just to make it bigger, because then it's just that much harder to avoid, and it does last an extra turn, or it lasts 2 turns, so pretty good. Backup plan is basically Lockwood's dash, and he will dash to a place. That's all that really happens there. Taking damage reduces the ability to cool down by 1 at the end of the turn, so every time you take damage you get to dash a little bit faster, which is why Lockwood is really, really strong. Let's see, modules here are increased range by 1, leaves a trapwire at your starting location, that deals half damage, gain 20 shield at the end of next turn, and gain 1 energy for each square moved. Kinetic Dash is pretty stupid in my opinion, because you're not going to gain a ton of energy out of it, but it only costs 1, so man. Slippery is okay. I like Souvenir though. I love leaving an extra trapwire there because people are always chasing after you afterwards. Run and Gun is Lockwood's ultimate. Basically, you run in a huge line and you just deal tons of damage to everybody there. The modules here are Ignore Cover, gain 10 energy per enemy hit, gain 50 energy if you do not hit an enemy, and increase range by 3. I like Gunslinger and Armor Piercing. Armor Piercing basically lets you attack and ignore cover, which is just fantastic how that works. And then Gunslinger gives you 10 energy per enemy hit, so if you actually hit multiple enemies, you get your ult back even faster, and it's just fantastic. Normally you want to use this when you hit at least 2 enemies, so it's pretty good. Alright, we're about halfway done. Oh my god, we're only halfway done. Nyx is the next champion. He's the sniper. So basically he has 5 abilities. His first move is Headshot, which basically just is a line shot that does a whole bunch of damage. Hardcore pierces the first target hit, damage to the second target is reduced. Increased range by 1, or if the target is farther than 6 spaces away, they take 6 additional damage. I like Hardcore, piercing the target is really good, just in general, and you will be using this move a lot. Stalker Suit, basically you become invisible, and if you use an ability, reveals you temporarily. but you are invisible for 2 turns at least. Let's see, field triage, whatever. Restore 10 health when used. Become energized until the next turn. Increase stalker suit duration by 1 turn, or on use gain haste until end of next turn. Haste isn't too bad. Sneak attack is actually I'm not a huge fan. Really, any of these are okay. I like field triage best, just because it's 1 and you're just going to use this a lot. So you'll be like, all right, let's use it, and you get 10 health back every time. But it's not fantastic. Any of these are really good. Energized is also good. I don't know. All of these are good. Anything you want really here is fine. There's no bad one or best one there. Overwatch drone. You get to put down a line, which basically if anybody walks across will do damage to them. Cool stuff. It lasts for 2 turns. So watchful drone increases drone duration by 1, increase damage by 6, hits all targets that move through it instead of just the first, reduces the cooldown to 1 turn, and gain a second charge of Overwatch drone. Drone army is so much fun. Basically just putting those drones down every single turn, basically. It's not a free action, which is the real problem here. But you can basically put down a drone every single turn. It's a lot of fun. Basically, if you're not shooting, you can always put these drones down. Any of these are pretty good. Ammo replication's not bad because then you can hit more than just the first target. Watchful Eye is pretty fun because then you can have it just 1 extra turn, which will actually make you have a Overwatch drone down at all times. So Watchful Eye is pretty good for a 1 module, but I like Drone Army if you can. The problem is you're not going to use the stupid drone every single turn, so Drone Army isn't really that fantastic. I just love using it. It's not, but it's probably not the best. I would say Watchful Eye is probably one of the better ones because then you can just keep it around longer. It's a good zoning tool on top of that. Nova, Vortex Round is basically his shot where he does an AoE and slows everybody who hits. Mods here are increased splash damage by 5. All enemies hit are slowed. Oh, that slows is the taser round. Forgot that. Targets are weakened next turn, and target is slowed for an additional turn. Any of these are good. I kind of like Nova for 1, but if you want a 3, target is slowed for an additional turn is also very good. Basically, they get slowed for 1 turn, and then wait, all enemies hit. Oh. Yeah, the main target is slowed. Okay, so only the main target is slowed for an additional turn. If you're really chasing somebody down, or if you want them to stay off of you, Crippling Shot is really good for that. Okay, and his ultimate is Fusion Pulse, which is basically the sniper's dream. You shoot in a huge range line shot and do a whole bunch of damage, and you shoot through walls and you do damage through walls and you just do crazy good stuff. Focused Beam increases the range by 5. On use, gain invisibility until the end of the next decision phase. Enemies hit are revealed until the end of next turn. Deals an additional 10 damage to enemies below 50% health. I like the Reaper Shells here, but honestly, Focus Beam is my choice because you can get bonus range off of it, and that bonus range really helps. The Reaper Shells does really help if you're trying to snipe somebody out, and, you know, if they've escaped. But it's just too often that they'll dash or TP away, and you'll just miss the whole thing anyway. So that bonus 5 range will help you more often than not. Alright, Garrison is up next. Garrison has Piston Punch in level 1, or move 1. Sorry, a little tired. Power Glove, gain an additional 5 energy. He basically just does a punch and hurts stuff in the way. Great. Gain an additional 5 energy if you hit an enemy. All enemies hit take 26 damage, which is, I believe, the full damage instead of just the further people away take less damage. One-on-one, the first target hit takes an additional 4 damage. Honestly, Haymaker here is pretty good. I would suggest Haymaker because it's probably the best. Hand Cannon. Hand Cannon, basically Garrison will shoot a shot straight and then it will explode once it hits somebody and do damage to everybody behind them. Slows the first enemy hit as the first module. The second one is increased range by 1, increase the arc of explosion. Initial damage is increased by 8, and enemies hit are revealed. Any of these are good. I just like the slow is pretty decent, but also big shot and single out are good. Tracker rounds, it can be. It's not terrible, but you can reveal a whole bunch of enemies if you hit a whole bunch of enemies, but there's plenty of other moves that can do that, so meh. Cool thing about this is you actually do have Hand Cannon as a 1 cooldown, so it's going to be up pretty often. Missile Barrage. Missile Barrage is basically you turn it on 1 turn, and then the next turn you shoot everybody to the three nearby random enemies, if you can see them anyway. Let's see. The modules here are damage increased by 9. And reduced for each target hit beyond the first. Locked and loaded, no longer a free action, but damage increased by 8. Gain 10 shield until end of next turn. Launch 2 missiles 2 turns in a row. Increases cooldown by 1 turn. Enemies hit are revealed until end of next turn. Honestly, none of these are great. I like first one in just to get that bonus shield. It does help quite a bit overall, just taking a little bit less damage every single turn that you use this. And you'll be using this pretty much on cooldown because it's a free action. Yeah. Okay, so next one, Heavy Metal. Basically, this is his dash. You will dash to a place and you will hurt everybody and slow all nearby enemies when you land. Increases damage by 5 is the first module. The second one is gain 15 shield until end of next turn. Quake Slam roots all enemies hit, increases cooldown by 1, and on use gain haste for next 2 turns. I like Quake Slam here, just in general. Quake Slam is really good for rooting enemies down, but if you don't want to spend 3 there, you can go for In Pursuit. In Pursuit is really good because it gives you haste afterwards, and you can really run down enemies. Even if they dashed away from your landing zone, you can chase them down very easily with that. Shock Pod is his ultimate, and basically he drops down a pod that does a whole bunch of damage to everybody and then drops healing for your team, so basically they can run over and get healing. There's only 2 modules here, and the first one is increased damage by 5, and the second one is slows all enemies hit. I like increased damage by 5, but it kind of depends on what else you're using. If you want to use 3 other ones, whatever. I find Garrison to be a little bit underpowered. I think that he's pretty good champion overall, but I feel like his module selection is really lackluster. Like, look at his ult. You only have 2 modules. You can spend 2 or you can spend 1. That's it. I'm a little disappointed in his modules, but I feel like that it's going to change over time. Alright, 4 more champions and then we're done. Cork. Cork is a support that does a lot of healing. A lot of healing and it's mediocre damage. His first move is Gamma Ray. Basically, you attach a bond to an enemy that deals 15 damage and reveals them. So you basically connect yourself with an enemy and you continue to do damage. Q stuff. First module is deals an additional 10 damage when the bond is first connected. Next one is increase energy gain to a maximum of 3 for each turn attached to an enemy. The third one is gain 5 health each turn this tether is attached. Fourth is damage increased by 2 to a maximum of 6 for each turn this enemy is attached to an enemy. Pretty cool stuff. I actually like compounding radiation, but the problem with that is you have to be chasing down the enemy to get that to work. I find Quark really hard to use overall, just because you really have to understand where enemies are going to move and how enemies are going to move, and if you're stuck to your ally, how your allies are going to move. So overall, I think any of these are okay. I like compounding radiation, but compounding fusion can also be pretty effective. Atomic Bond attaches a bond to an ally that restores 12 health each turn. It breaks if you go too far away. First module is if the bonded ally takes 40 or more damage in a turn, they gain a shield that absorbs 10 damage next turn. Next is healing amount increased by 2 each turn to a maximum of 6. 3 is can now be targeted through walls. 4 is gain 5 health each turn this tether is attached. And 5 allows full movement after using Atomic Bond. A lot of these are really good. I like Covalent just because you can target through walls. Sharing is Caring is really good because you get health every turn. And Evolving Barrier actually isn't too bad. If the bonded ally takes 40 or more damage, they gain a shield that absorbs 10 damage. So it kind of is like they just keep getting a shield every turn. It's not great, though, because they have to continue to take 40 damage every single turn. But 40 damage isn't really that much if you think about it. That's like 2 attacks. Radiate. Increases the strength of one of your bonds by 100% of the base value. So you can either increase your damage bond to an enemy or your healing bond to a friend. Let's see. No cooldown on either of your bonds. This one also has no cooldown. And let's see, Radiate. Gain 2 health for each active bond. Pretty cool. Hits are if an enemy is targeted, they gain Weak. If an ally is targeted, they gain Might. Hits both the bonded enemy and ally. Your movement is no longer reduced after executing this ability, and gain Unstoppable for the end of the turn. I'm a big fan of Atomic Power because it hits both the bonded enemy and ally. Only problem with that is you have to be bonded to both to an enemy and an ally at the same time. And sometimes that's really hard because people are dashing all around all the time. Next one is Quantum Collision. You dash to a location adjacent to an enemy or an ally, attaching a bond to that target. This is one of your longer dashes. It's got 6 turns, so. Modules here are increase the landing zone by 1. Any allies crossed over hit are given energized, automatically chase the target hit, and if you dash to an ally, they gain a shield for 15 turn. Attraction here is probably the best because you do need to chase down the target to keep that bond going. So attraction generally is going to be where I would go with on these. His ultimate is Positronic Surge, which basically just does a whole bunch of healing and energizes all allies until the end of the turn. It is really a lot of healing if you can do it right. Modules here are increase the duration of the energized buff by 1 turn. Allies gain 5 health for a turn for the next 2 turns. Gain 15 shield per ally hit, and increase the radius of the blast by 1. Fusion is pretty good because you gain 15 shields per ally hit. So if you can hit all of your allies, you gain a huge shield, especially if you're in the middle of all the enemies. That is totally. It will keep you alive that whole turn. And Positronic Overload is also pretty good because it increases the radius of the blast. So either way, Cork is a little bit harder. I find Cork incredibly hard to use. I cannot play Cork well at all. So I would say I highly recommend playing other supports if you're into it. Cork is not that. He's not bad, but he's very hard to use effectively. Gray. Let's see. Gray's abilities. Gray starts with Tracer Bolt, basically basic attack, just does a line shot. Mods are deal 4 additional damage if the target is tracked, pierce enemies, but only damage to the initial target. You track the others, and then you increase range by 2. I am a huge fan of increasing the range because it lets you hit stuff that you should just not be hitting in general. Aerodynamic bolts is absolutely where you would want to go on this. Hawk Drone. Hawk Drone increases damage to track targets by 5, it attacks invisible enemies, and increases the maximum range of the drone targeting by 2. Oh, by the way, Hawk Drone is basically just a move that shoots out a zone, does a whole bunch of damage on the way, and then sits on the battlefield until you die, basically. And it does damage to anybody in that zone. So it's really a fantastic move. I would say I love attacking invisible enemies, so I always do the infrared enhancement here. It really does help a lot with if there's a pup or a Nyx or something like that. But in general, infrared enhancement is just fantastic because it does attack those invisible enemies. The other one would be potentially composite materials because it does give you bonus range. Vicious is really good too. Honestly, all these modules are good. I just say infrared enhancement is the best overall. Next one is Tranquilizer Darts, where you throw out 2 darts and you weaken and reveal the enemies that you hit if you hit them. Mods here are gain 3 extra enemy per enemy hit, adds an additional dart, so basically you throw 3 darts instead. Darts grant might to allies if hit, and if they gain unstoppable if you hit 2 on the same. Enemies hit by more than 1 dart are slowed, and darts are free action. I cannot stress enough how good Off the Cuff is. Off the Cuff is probably the best because it turns those darts into a free action. It doesn't even change the cooldown like it used to. So basically, you get to throw the dart out and then you get to shoot them in the face with your Tracer Bolt and do bonus damage. It's just fantastic. Slip Away is Gray's dash. Basically, you can dash to wherever your drone is on the map. So once your drone is down, if you're close enough, which is relatively pretty far actually, you can then dash to wherever the drone is. The different mods here are gain 5 energy when used, gain 20 shields until end of next turn, increase the size of the landing zone, and gain vision of your initial position until the end of the next turn. Honestly, none of these are overwhelming. I say Agile Escape is just the basic one to use, but any of them are okay. None of them are great. Shelter's not bad, but for 3, I think it's better used on something else, like Off the Cuff. Alright, Gray's ultimate is Voltaic Cage, I think is how you say it. But basically you throw your drone out to a specific location and you put a 3x3 square down. And when enemies walk through that 3x3 square grid, they are rooted and take a bunch of additional damage. This is just a fantastic ult because not only does it root them, but then if it roots them, they stay in where your drone is. So they basically are going to take more damage next turn from your drone as well. The modules here are increased damage by 5, on cast resets the cooldown of Hawk Drone, enemies inside the cage are revealed until the end of next turn. Relentless is kind of stupid because it's reset the cooldown of Hawk Drone. Hawk Drone is only a 2 cooldown thing, so I mean you're going to be using it every other turn anyway, or every other turn, and you got plenty of other moves to use in that case, so I don't think you need it. I just go with Zapper just to give some bonus damage and let me get 3s on some other materials, or some other abilities. 2 more champions. We're almost done. Rampart. Rampart is, I'm just gonna say it, he's probably the worst champion in the game. I think that Rampart is probably one of the least good champions. Like, I feel like he is just so underpowered. And it's mostly because of this fourth move, which we'll talk about in just a second. 1 second. Okay, excuse me. Okay, first move is Adamantium Flurry. Basically, Rampart shoots out his spike in front of him, and then he spins around, dealing damage to anybody nearby. Let's see. Area Suppression increases damage done to adjacent enemies by 6. So basically, your little spin does bonus damage. Danger Zone deals 7 additional damage to enemies hit by both the stab and the spin. That's okay. Increase energy gain by per enemy hit by 2. And Deadly Stab, increase the width of the initial stab by 50%. Honestly, I like Area Suppression on this, increase the damage done to adjacent enemies, because it's more often than not that you're going to be doing that. Increase energy gain per enemy hit by 2 is not too bad either, because you will get bonus energy, and I feel like Rampart needs energy to get his ult just so that he can be effective. Bulwark is his second move, and basically he puts up a shield that blocks everything. It blocks almost all attacks that come from the direction of your shield. This is a make-or-break move. Like, this move is what makes a really good Rampart a really good Rampart. Otherwise, if you didn't have this move, or if you don't use this move effectively, you're just worthless. Like, you're not going to be a good Rampart. His modules here are: on use, gain 15 shield for the turn. Bull Rush, enemies are now rooted instead of slowed. Gain 5 health for each attack blocked. Gain 2 energy for each attack blocked, and deal 6 damage to enemies whose attacks are blocked. Reflective Shield and Regenerative Block are probably the best here. You can either gain health for blocking stuff, or you deal damage back to people for hitting stuff. I think those are probably the best, either Regenerative Block or Reflective Shield. Oops. Third move is Fusion Lance. Basically, you shoot out your little knife, and you grab somebody, and then you pull them back to you. You can actually select a target location for that. But, and you root them in place because you knock them back, of course. Let's see. Gone Fishing is his first module, and that's: you can now select the square the enemy is knocked back to. Pretty cool. Cooldown is reduced by 1. Damage is increased by 3, and range is increased by 2. Honestly, Rocket Lance is probably the best here, giving you bonus range, but it just kind of depends. I thought that the cooldown was a factor here, but I do not find this is worth it. I think the Rocket Lance is just generally better. Let's see. Unstoppable Force. You become unstoppable for the turn. How totally stupid is this move? Like, you became unstoppable. Okay. What's the point of that? This is the dumbest move in the entire game. I don't understand it at all. Like, I feel like it's totally worthless. Regardless, let's see. Show of Force. You also gain Might for the turn. Special Forces. Nearby allies also gain Unstoppable for the turn. Invincible. On use, gain 15 shields for the turn. Avalanche. Gain Haste until end of turn. And nearby enemies are slowed for the turn. I generally like Terrifying Presence, because if you can slow them, it makes the move relatively kind of okay, but not really. Invincible's not bad because you can get shield, but I don't even know what to do with this move. I feel like this move is just, so bad. Maybe Avalanche. Basically, the mods are what makes this move useful. If you didn't have a mod, this move is totally worthless. And I know somebody's going to hate on me, but I just cannot find a use for that move. Either way, ultimate move is Aegis Protocol, which basically you dash to a target location, dealing damage on the way over, and you put up your shield in a direction, so you block all attacks. It's pretty cool that you get a bonus shield here. You passively regenerate 3 additional energy per turn with this module. The next one is increase the maximum distance of the charge by 2, and third one is allies crossed over or hit by the charge gain 15 shields for the turn. Honestly, Protective Wake isn't bad here, because then you can give shields to your allies. I'm a big fan of it, but honestly, Live to Fight is generally good too, because that just means you get more ults off, but 3 energy per turn is just worthless. Like, it's just not, like, you know how much 3 energy per turn is? 3 times 20. You get 60 energy over a normal game. Actually, you get less than that, because you're not gonna go to 20 turns in most games, and if you do, you're just not gonna be like, this is such a bad module now that I think about it, doing the math on it. but I don't think anything's much better. I guess rocket boosters would be better because then you can do a charge faster. I don't know. I'm just very disappointed in this. In the whole move set of Rampart, I feel like he's underpowered and I feel like he needs a tune-up. Either way, that is all the champions. So let me just... Oh, dang it. Forgot about Titus. Okay, let me talk about Titus. Alright, Titus is a champion, melee champion with a big sword. Cool. There you go. You're done. Okay, no, seriously. So his first move is overhead slam. Basically, you do a big cone attack, or not a cone attack, but like a line attack in front of you, dealing a whole bunch of damage to enemies and slightly less damage to people on the sides. Let's see. Modules here are gain 4 health for each enemy hit by splash damage. For each enemy hit by the central attack, the damage of the splash is increased by 3. Deals full damage through cover, and increases the central hit width by 50% and deal an additional 6 damage. No longer hits side areas. Shield Breaker is generally my go-to because I love avoiding cover, and people are always hiding behind walls when you're Titus. They will jump over a wall and just wait for you to get there. Covers, dealing that damage through cover is pretty good, just overall. Next move is his dash, Berserker Charge. You rush forward, you deal damage, and you slow the first enemy you hit. This move has a huge range, it feels. But either way, let's see. Cleaver. Nearby enemies are cleaved for an additional 10 damage. All targets are hit are slowed for the turn. Deal an additional 1 damage to the main target per square traveled. And gain 5 health per enemy hit. Oh, and last one is chase the first enemy hit. Generally, I like to go Cleaver here because I think the Cleaver is going to give you more damage overall. People clump up when they can't see you, and you just run up to them and do good stuff. Cleaver is probably my go-to one here, and if you don't want that, then maybe Harvest. But it depends on how many things you can hit. But you get bonus health out of that, and that's always fun for me. Next one is Thundering Roar. Basically, it's a free action that you can unleash a shout, giving yourself might until end of turn. It's basically a free might catalyst that you can use every 6 turns. Let's see. Echoing Roar reduces the cooldown by 2 if no allies are hit. Rallying Cry. Gain 5 health per target hit, including himself. Enemies hit are made weak until end of turn. Enemies hit are revealed until end of turn. Rallying Cry is probably the best here. You get a little bit more health. And if you're nearby your champions, you'll get, or your other freelancers, you will get even more health. I just like getting health, and I feel like Titus's main weakness is that he has no healing and no shielding. So it's like, ooh, okay, you're just going to take a whole bunch of damage, and you're just not going to, like, good luck. Let's see, Dirty Fighting is his 4th move. Basically, you fling a dagger, and you deal 30 damage the next time they are hit by a damaging effect. So basically, you do bonus damage this way, and you reveal them, which is just a nice little bonus. This is probably one of Titus's best moves, in my opinion. But anyway, target is also slowed on the first one. If an ally triggers the explosion, the cooldown of Dirty Fighting is reduced by 2. Pierce the first target hit, and gain haste for the turn. Flurry of Daggers is just really good. The problem is you have to be on the same page as your team. You have to throw the dagger, and that gives 30 bonus damage to somebody when they hit them. And then you get 2 cooldown reduce, and it's just makes you throw those daggers so good. Oh, I love it. I love Flurry of Daggers. I think it's a great module for that move. His final move is Death Blow, which basically is a huge cone attack that does a whole bunch of damage and roots all enemies, and slows enemies that are a little bit further away. Let's see. Modules here are deal 2 additional damage for every 10% health you are missing. Deal an additional 10 damage to enemies below 50% health. The first 2 arcs each take half of the targeter. And increases the width of the arc by 25 degrees. All of these are good, really. I love all these. Battle Rage deals quite a bit more damage, depending on how good or how low you are. It can deal up to, like, 18 more damage for every single person you hit. Executioner is also really good because you just deal more damage, just guaranteed. Because if they're not low health, you're not going to be doing extra damage. But overall, I really think any of these are good. I like Subduction Zone just for the bonus width, but most of the time you don't really need the bonus width. It just depends on the match. And that is all the champions, so let's just cover them all real quick and give my brief overview. Like I said, the frontliners are Asana, Rask, Garrison, and Rampart, and Titus. No, wait, I guess Asana, Rask, Garrison, Rampart, Titus. Yeah, those are the frontliners, all 5 of those. Rampart is really probably the worst in my opinion. Titus is is in line with Garrison. I feel like Garrison and Titus are okay. I feel like Garrison's not bad, and I feel like Titus isn't bad, but neither of them are really crazy good. They're not like just overwhelmingly really good. The real problem is neither of them have a lot of healing or shielding. Whereas Asana has lots of shielding, and Rask has lots of healing. So I think Asana and Rask are just better frontliners overall. The supports are Aurora, Helios, and Cork. I feel like all three of these are really good in their own right. I think Aurora is probably the best overall just because she has so much healing and so much, she's useful all around. Whereas Helios is really good at dealing damage and comboing with people if you can get those combos off. Whereas Aurora is just better on her own. Like, she's really good by herself. Whereas Helios kind of needs people to be with him to be effective. And Cork, he's really good, but he's just very hard to use. And I feel like I haven't seen anybody really untap Quark's potential, I will say. Finally, the damage dealers. We got Zuki, Grimolitions, Pup, Lockwood, Nyx, and Gray. Out of all of those people, I think Lockwood and Gray are probably at the top, with maybe Nyx being up there with them. Nyx is good overall. If you miss his ult, like, you feel really bad, but he does a bunch of damage outside of that. The problem is Nyx has absolutely no dashes, so he can really be focused if you can't use your invisibility correctly. Whereas Lockwood has so many escapes, and he just always seems to get away because his dash keeps going on cooldown and stuff like that. But I'm probably the biggest fan of Gray. I feel like Gray is incredibly strong, and it's not that she's overpowered. It's just people will stand in your zone. People will just stand there and die, and it's just ridiculous how much damage you can do as Gray. I've had multiple games where I've done over 800 health of damage to my enemy team as Gray. Zuki is really good. I would say Zuki is probably in the next tier with Pup, and Zuki and Pup are both very good, but the problem is both of them are very reliant on your team. Like, Pup is not good by himself. He needs either a Helio with him or just people to do damage, because Pup can only do so much damage at a time. He's dashing back and forth and grabbing people and pulling them into things, but he doesn't have anything to pull them into himself. Like, his walkies are only effective if you can pull them into a trap or pull them into a Zuki ult or something like that. Or Zuki nuke. Zuki's problem is that she's very ult dependent. She does a bunch of damage, but if you miss her ult, if you don't do her ult right, you will not be doing very good as Zuki. Like, her basic moves are okay. I feel like her cone attack that puts the sticky bombs on him, that's probably her best move outside of her ult, but even that doesn't do a crazy amount of damage, and it's not the biggest range, the biggest area effect. Finally, you have Grimolitions. I think Grimolitions is probably, I'm just underrating him, but I feel like he doesn't do a bunch of damage by himself. It all depends on he's even like very much like Zuki. You have to hit the ult really well, otherwise you're just not going to be doing a ton of damage. His bombs don't do very much damage, and other than that, it's like you gotta combo things really well together if you want to get anything done. But overall, that's my thoughts on all the champions, and just a brief / hour-long review of all the champions modules in the game. Obviously, the alpha is pretty much done and is actually closing tomorrow morning, but this is basically a look at every single thing and my thoughts on each of the champions thus far. Once the alpha opens up again, or a beta opens up, I will come back and make some more videos. Hopefully, if you like this, please like, favorite, share, subscribe, all that jazz, and as always, you keep it salty, Internet.